All right, here we go.
My name is Jason, and I'm a Scruffy Looking Nerf Herder.
Welcome, everybody.
It's always like a slow opening. Yeah. Like I'm like waiting. Like, is he gonna say something? I'm just staring at him.
No, I was trying not to choke. Sorry, a little sick, guys. Anyways, welcome to the Infernal Brotherhood of the Scruffy Looking Nerf Herders. Yeah. This is in fact a live Star Wars vidcast, bi-monthly, for Star Wars fans, by Star Wars fans, and this is going to be a fun one. This is our second part in our interview series, I guess. Today, we are going to be interviewing TJ, the Commanding Officer from Rogue Base of the Rebel Legion.
Thank you for joining us, man.
Hey, gentlemen.
Round of applause. Hey, cheesy joke.
I should have like the clapping and cheering queued up.
I think we need a soundboard.
I think we
desperately need a soundboard.
It's actually a good idea. Well, thank you, TJ, so much for joining us. How you doing tonight?
Not bad. How about yourselves?
Very, very good. And we're going to be getting into all sorts of stuff from Rebel Legion to what you look forward to in Star Wars and everything from costuming to different fan club crossovers. That's where the buy comes in with the bi-monthly, I think, right?
Sure.
Okay, sure.
We'll say that.
So we started, before we even turned the cameras on, talking about Jedi and talking about Mandalorians and getting into everything from species differentiation to whether Jedi should be peaceful at all. But we're going to shove all that aside just for the sake of the show. We're not going to be talking politics. We're not going to be talking about religion. We're just going to be talking about Star Wars. So everyone can sit tight and enjoy the show. If you join us in the live chat and you have questions, put them up there and we'll get to them as soon as we can. But let's start at the very, very beginning. I mean, our notes here are starting out with the Rebel Legion, but I feel like because I've never really been properly introduced to you, TJ.
That's true. We should probably talk about you just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, you're getting interviewed after all.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
A little bit about myself. So I'm TJ OBrien, and as you said, I'm the Commanding Officer of Rogue Base of the Rebel Legion. So we're the local chapter of Rebel Legion, which represents primarily the good guys of the Star Wars universe.
Hell yes. So does this mean that you only appreciate the good guys, or do you bleed over into a little bit of bad side too?
I like to bleed into a little bit of them all. I'm actually a member of both the Rebel Legion, the 501st, the Mandalorian Mercs, as well as the Droid Builders. So
I didn't know you're building a droid.
Yep. So as you can see, like even on my shirt, I like to represent all, even though I should only be wearing Rebel Legion on this one.
Okay,
we're gonna be having chapter issues coming up. People are gonna be calling you. Telling you to change your patches or get to stepping.
Waiting for the blood pressure to rise on a few people.
He's misrepresenting the purity. Well, this is great because the last time we had a conversation with someone about fan organizations, it was with Jason Liu at the very opening of this, and he was speaking specifically to the 501st Vader's Fist. And so I thought it was very interesting. Great conversation. Of course, I love me some Empire, but everyone as a kid who watches Star Wars loves the Rebellion. And if it weren't for people like Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker, we would never even have a connection to this entire series because you can't have the bad guys without the good guys fighting against them. And so that, I think, is going to be a really interesting place to start. And maybe before we start talking about fan organizations and stuff, who was your go-to character when you were a young man or a young boy watching Star Wars for the first time? Were you a Han Solo? Were you a Luke Skywalker? Were you a Jabba the Hutt?
Oh, you ask the tough questions, don't you?
Salacious B. Crumb?
Honestly, from the original, from a face character standpoint, Vader's always going to be one of my tops right there.
God, man after my own heart. I dig it.
Yep. Now, my inspiration for joining Star Wars costuming in general was because I absolutely loved the biker scouts riding on the speeder bikes throughout Endor Forest. That was my very first costume, was a biker scout. That one, as a non-face character, is pretty much tops in my book.
That's great.
He likes to hug trees.
Or get wrapped around them, because that's kind of what ended up happening with the biker scouts. So did you think it was just these rebels came into this forest moon of Endor and just kicked the shit out of these biker scouts for no reason? They're just innocent men and women trying to do their jobs.
Oh, exactly. They're trying to do their jobs. Of course, they were trying to chop down the trees and make the teddy bears run for cover. So they're not entirely good. But
well, first of all, those teddy bears are freaking cannibals, and they hunt you. There's no.
Well, that doesn't make them cannibals. They're only cannibals if they eat other Ewoks.
that's
Okay,
true.
you know what? That's actually
They're
a really
just
good point.
carnivores.
That's true. That's true. Either way, didn't they still have R2 wrapped up as if they were going to eat him too?
Mhm.
Like,
That one I always questioned.
that's weird, right? Did they think there was like a mushy marshmallow center? I never.
There might be.
You know what? I would
Ever
actually
look inside
think.
Master Mech?
I think I might like R2 a little bit better if there were a marshmallow center. That would be pretty awesome. Just every once in a while, he just pops out like a little snack cake or something. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit of Rebel Legion here, and let's go a little bit back before you even joined. Can you tell us about the origins of this organization?
Yeah, so I don't have the best of origin stories, and I do apologize. I was trying to do my best at finding the information, but it's pretty much similar to how the 501st started off as little localized fan groups, people dressing up in their Jedi, dressing up in their costumes, what have you. And the Rebel Legion was formed back way in January of 2000 by Tony Troxel, Richard Fairbrother, and Doug Fesco and Ed O'Connell. And basically it was all over the U.S., had a whole bunch of different bases, which is the local chapters.
Mhm.
But and they started organizing a little bit more, got the official sign-offs, what have you, from Rebel Legion, or not Rebel Legion, but Lucasfilm, and of course started to grow from there.
Oh yeah. So was this a reaction to the 501st? Because I'm sure people, like, if you were a kid and you saw in 77 when Star Wars came out for the third or fourth time, you were already dressing up at that point. And so costuming has been around from go, really, when it comes to the Star Wars fan base. But as far as an official organization, was this something that was realized, like, oh, we can actually do a counterpart or a sort of brother organization to the 501st, or did Rebel Legion come before the 501st?
Honestly, I'm not sure of the origin stories. I've heard a little bit of both. I honestly, there were and always have been groups for costuming long before any of the legions were formed, but they weren't, a large organized. But as time just progresses, especially the advent of the internet becoming a little bit better, they were able to organize and cluster a little bit more. And then, of course, 501st Legion was created, and I think that did help in spurring the Rebel Legion. And of course, you've got tons of people that are multi-members of each of them. So,
do you think that was it a situation where George Lucas, and just sort of Lucasfilms in general, did they always embrace the costuming community, or were they ever sort of cagey about it? Like, this is my IP, you shouldn't be, I don't know, representing it or something.
Unfortunately, I can't say to that, and I haven't heard too many stories. As far as I'm aware, Lucasfilm has had a great reputation with the 501st and Rebel Legion and a few of the other sister clubs as well. It's one of those, we're doing a great cause. Most of what we do is charity-based. It's, I'd say on an average, we're 80 to 85% purely charity events, with the rest of it just being, fun, non-charity related or just non-charity related events. So from a visual perspective, that's a really good eye candy for a bunch of people where you don't have to pay them anything to go out and represent your IP. So as long as we're doing good in their name, they're pretty good about us doing things. We've got at least now a great relationship with them. We've got some contacts within Lucasfilm that our Legion commands are in contact with at a decent amount of time to make sure that we're doing things with how they would like, while also focusing on what we do best.
That's awesome. Had you noticed any difference in interaction with Lucasfilm with the buyout that Disney had on it?
Not too bad from our perspective. I think they've come down a little bit cleaner on what their expectations of us at certain types of events are. So, of course, corporate events, things like that, they definitely want us to be a bit more have the corporations go through the appropriate approval process through Lucasfilm and then get us involved. Even the same thing like going to Utah Grizzlies or the Utah Jazz, they have to go through the full fun process of getting Lucasfilm approval to make their Star Wars nights and things like that, where your local charities, things like that, we have a little bit more free reign to go out and have fun and help the charities with what we do.
Yeah. So do you ever foresee it becoming too much of a burden for organizations to actually request formally, like representation through the Rebel Legion or the 501st?
I don't think so. I honestly think that it's because the higher ups know what we do best and how we work with things. Adding too much red tape, of course, is going to then stifle the freedom and creativity that the legions have had over the past few 10, 15 years or whatever have you. Why would you try to make a good thing so convoluted that people don't want to do it anymore? So it's definitely a tightrope on that one, because they have to make sure their IP is protected at all times, but at the same time, again, you've got free advertising and a whole bunch of people that are willing to go out and spend any between $300 or $400 for a Jedi or a Tusken Raider, up to $5,000 for a Darth Vader, or some of the people that create their own R2 units, they're upwards $10,000-$15,000 for the bells and whistles on those things.
Oh my goodness.
I'm in about 5 on mine, and mine's just in my garage dead.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, unless Jana's watching, in which case I got it from a friend.
For cost. It didn't cost anything. It's just a hug. A friendly hug.
Exactly.
But remember, it's for the kids, so you can justify the cost, right?
Oh, no, I'm a kid, so it's cool.
There you
go. So I want to get into... Well, okay, before we get into personal experience with Rebel Legion and stuff like that, let me do a couple sort of oversight questions here as well, because there, as we already mentioned, there are different organizations that support and reinforce the importance of Star Wars and charity work. You're a member. You listed all of them, right? I mean, like pretty much fully representing. What differentiates the Rebel Legion, aside from just being sort of the good guys in the role, from anyone else? Is it literally just that cut and dry? We represent the heroes, they represent the villains?
For the most part, yeah. It's fairly cut and dry on that. What we do between the groups, honestly, we do all the same exact thing. We all go out to the same events. We all share with many events here at our local FanX. We actually have a shared booth with the same goal. And so from a representative point, really the delineator is just going to be that Rebel Legion, we are the good guys, we are the heroes. One of the big things is some kids are very scared of stormtroopers and Darth Vader. The helmets kind of intimidate people. The great thing is a bunch of Jedi walking around. Those are the good guys. You see Princess Leia, you see Han Solo, you see very strong people, but you're not afraid to approach them at the same time. So, but really, that's the delineator. We have a great working relationship here in Utah with the multiple clubs. So it's good to have the delineator on who we are, but we all work towards a common goal.
That's awesome. When it comes time to sort of sign up for specific events, does the reason why it bleeds over, why individuals so often find themselves as part of the 501st and part of the Rebel Legion, because there's so few events that you're in these organizations because you want to represent Star Wars in some way. You want your character to be represented at events. Do you think that the reason why there's so much crossover in membership simply because there's fewer events, and so you want to be able to make sure that you have, if your buddy's going to be the Jedi, then we need a bad guy, we need a stormtrooper. Well, I can be the stormtrooper in this particular case. Like, do you ever run into, and this sounds a little trite, and I don't mean to bring it down to this sort of juvenile level, but do you ever run into sort of high school politics, like cliques when it comes to organizations and stuff, like events?
You're definitely going to have cliques. We've had them in Utah. Unfortunately, people are going to gravitate towards similar personalities, similar like minds, which can cause a little bit of abrasiveness here and there. I don't think it's anything that people can ever, just need to learn to grow up and get over and find that way to work together with other people, even if you disagree with them. In my mind, though, in regards to choosing one group or another, I mean, you've got cliques internally with the groups that just naturally occur, not meaning any ill will or anything like that. They just occur because people are different types of personalities, and some just don't get along with others. So, but in regards to how do I choose events, are there enough events? There are plenty of events. Honestly, during, like, for example, May is one of our busiest months, usually because of May the 4th. It's the early part of summer. That's when we start getting a lot of the cancer runs, when we start getting the I mean, we've got a myriad of events, and one club could easily cover the events. But having multiple groups also helps spread out what kind of scenarios you want, what kind of representation you want. For me, it's when I look to which costume I want to do, I'm choosing between, well, first of all, what is the purpose of the event? Are there any limitations? So an event where I might have less visibility, it might be in the dark, I might choose a costume where I have a higher range of mobility and visibility versus
You want to be able to see.
I know, come on, snow troopers.
Rebels.
You have to think, though, one of my mains is a Tusken Raider. That's like looking at toilet paper rolls.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
That's true. I'll
well, you were kind enough to supply us with some images from different events, and so I kind of want to just showcase these as we're having a conversation. Because, one, this is what it's all about. It's about the community. It's about the charity. It's about representation of Star Wars, right? I mean, it's...
That's me right there. That's me and my wife right there.
Oh, that is awesome.
The only one I have, me and my wife, that's good is her stabbing me with my lightsaber.
It's romantic. Nice. So are there mechanisms in place to ensure that everyone who wants to be a part of different events gets an opportunity to participate so that, certain cliques don't dominate the different events?
I mean, really, anytime there's only a limitation of we can only have one face character at an event representing, each club has their own rules on what would happen in that instance. Very few or very limited times we'll have requests that say we only want these characters or this kind of character, which we have to be a little honest with the event coordinators of saying, we're a charity group. Sometimes what you get. We can try for the Stormtrooper or Vader or Boba Fett, but I mean, you're going to get what you can if that's what you wish. So we try to make the best representation as possible. But I mean, from that, we can't limit anyone truly that doesn't want to put on their approved costume and go out and troop. If you want to be out there in about 99% of the times, you can go. The only thing that would stop you would be yourself.
Nice.
That's my biggest problem. I gotta drive to Salt Lake. I don't want to do it.
Well, if you just get more events up there.
Yeah, man.
I wish.
Look for the opportunity, Meegs. Come on.
Network. Come on.
But then I gotta do stuff. I just want to play pretend.
I absolutely just love this, and I don't know how you how anyone can walk into a sort of a Make-A-Wish Foundation situation or a cancer ward situation and not completely break down and sob like a straight up baby. I could not handle that. How do you handle it?
Meegs hit it right on the point. In those times, that's when you really put the game face on and try to act in character. Wearing a helmet or a bucket helps. Every one of my costumes right now is a helmeted character, whether my Tusken Raider, my Scout Trooper General Weir, or my Temple Guard. They're all helmeted, which has definitely come in handy for those, feel good events where you know which troopers are bawling on the inside, but on the outside you just see Vader, you just see a stormtrooper. You look over and you see the Jedis. They are definitely a little bit teary-eyed and trying to hide it a little bit more than the others.
Yeah. God, that would be so hard.
Rough.
That would just be so hard. So aside from charity events and these really wonderful organizations like Make-A-Wish and stuff, what other types of events? You had already mentioned Grizzlies, and for the people who are not in Utah or around Utah, it's a hockey team, right? So what other types of events do you find yourself at?
Well, I mean, so we've got our typical charity, and then we go to sporting events that we are invited for, and those are the ones that really have to go through the whole process of getting Lucasfilm approval. I've done everything from school presentations where we've had Vader going out there and doing a little performance, and then the Jedi will drive him off, and they'll give a little speech about bullying or the anti-bullying spiel. Then they'll or even don't do drugs. I mean, we've been to all sorts of those. We have some fun parades that we do here in Utah. One just last month was the Ogden City Light Parade, which is a holiday parade that we get to be a little bit funnier. Put our holiday festivities on, so Santa hats, lights. I have a candy cane lightsaber that I carry around.
Oh, that's awesome!
So, and then of course, this last couple of years, we've done the local Pride parades in support of our LGBT communities and our members. We've done news. We've done the movie premieres. I mean, there's a massive list of things we've done. I don't even know if I could come up with all of them. The picture you see right there, that was at the local Leonardo space exhibit that we had. A fun one. Yeah, that was a great event. So science and exploration in space, and so we were able to do some demonstrations there and have discussions around their exhibits and as well as what we do. So, but I mean, it's limitless on what we can do. You name it, we've probably done it. Some are a little bit harder, of course. If a corporation wants us to do something, that's when you got to get Lucasfilm involved and get their approval for that. But if it's a charity event, library event, school event, those are great. Those are easy. And then, of course, some of our big ones, like you see there with our trash compactor, that was at our local
awesome.
Comic-Con. That's what's actually sitting out in my backyard right now. That's
really?
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's great.
But yeah, we do of course, the comic conventions. Those are a big one. That's actually one of our biggest draws as well. So this past year at the Salt Lake FanX, we were actually able to raise $5,000 for Make-A-Wish. So have some fun, dress up as characters, but do good deeds at the same time. Can't complain.
Hell yeah.
And you're less likely to get the Comic-Con crud. Well, assuming you're wearing a helmet.
I'll just keep my helmet on the whole time.
Anytime you go to one of those things,
all
the germs and people. Ugh. Yeah, wear a helmet the whole time. You won't get sick.
Mouth breathers. Okay, so let's get into you a little bit here, because we've covered really pretty much everything that these organizations in the Rebel Legion do, what they stand for, which is completely admirable. How did you, at what point did you first get involved?
So I had heard rumors of the 501st. So 501st was the big one that I had originally heard of a long time ago at Galaxy, not too far from here. I did a charity event here locally for I think it was the JRS school for the blind and deaf, because I had a coworker that was had some kids there, and then we got of course, we got off from work to go do this carnival for them. So I'm working the carnival. I think I was manning either the popcorn machine or the cotton candy. I can't remember which. I was near the food. And then all of a sudden I see all these stormtroopers walking in, and a couple bounty hunters and some Jedi. And I just saw them set up their backdrop. They had a little printer there. First time I met a couple of our most famed people. Meegs will know them. So we had Splat there, and of course our favorite Imperial officer Dusty was there, and they meant basically just watching them the whole time and what they did. I'm like, I love Star Wars. I want to do what they do. Started talking to them that night. And basically they asked me the question that's always the hardest for someone. Because first I asked them, hey, what costume should I do? And then they just turned around and said, well, what costume do you want to do? And good luck on answering that question, because I've got a list.
I feel like they should narrow it. It is, what's your budget?
Yeah, well, I qualify that at that point. It's like, are you wanting to do this quick and easy? Or are you wanting to take a little bit more time? Because, for example, my Tusken Raider I put together, the helmet was a kit that I got from someone down in Arizona. Everything else I made myself. And it cost me about $400. It's a little bit more expensive because I just went and bought recreation bandoliers instead of having to make those myself. But
it's about the same price wise, I found.
Jeez.
Yeah. And then of course, I didn't have to pay a seamstress because my wife is just that awesome and does all my stuff for me because she's
nice.
Amazing work.
Yeah. So that would cost me about $350, $400 all said and done on my Tusken Raider. But my first costume, of course, was the Biker Scout, which I always loved, like I said, and that one took me a little bit longer to do. So I first started being what's called a cadet. So you're basically the costume handler. You start going out to events, and you basically help the costumers so they don't run over children or walk into walls, or of course everyone's favorite, there's always that red stormtrooper that his codpiece seems to come unsnapped. And almost every cadet will say that they've had experience having to put that snap back on. So
I've done it in costume. I've had to dress him in costume before.
Yep.
Oh my god.
So I mean, had that little trial by fire, got my helmet kit. I can't remember the exact year. It's been about 5 or 6 years. So I got the helmet kit 1 year, got that all put together, was so proud of that, and then had to sit and wait until taxes came around the next year. And fortunately, I got taxes. I got my the rest of my scout armor ordered, had my second kid, and when the kid's asleep, I had a week and a half off of work. Hey, I'm going to go out into the garage and work on my armor. Was able to get that done a lot faster than some other people just because, hey, look, free week of work and kid's asleep. So, but yeah, so when people ask that question to me now, I kind of do that. Well, what's your budget? What's your time frame? What do you like to do? So, I mean, those factors are always going to throw some in. So some people all say, do you want to just start dressing up and getting out there and being a costumer no matter what it is, then go the route of a Jedi, go the route of a Tusken, a Jawa, Imperial officer, some of those that are easier to find pieces, and sewing's a little bit easier to throw together if you've got the right seamstress or the right place that you can find the items, or if you're good at sewing yourself. And then you can be off and running real quick. Jedi are really easy to do and get up and going. Cause, I think the boots are the hardest thing, and maybe after that the belt.
Oh, really?
But everything else is pretty easy because there's at least between local people that do sewing as well as Etsy and other places, you can get if you don't want to make it yourself, you can get someone to do it for you pretty quick. Versus trying to get some of the hard armor, like if that one specialty clone that there's only maybe one maker out there, and you have to wait around for them to actually make the armor and then send it to you. And then once you have that armor, weeks and weeks of just gluing, sanding, and putting everything together. The
dreaded
fun
sanding.
Yep. Scout troopers, they're a little bit easier. not as much sanding. You just cut things to the right fit, put the Velcro on, and they're a little bit easier to go than your stormtroopers or other harder costumes like a Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you, because I come from a role-playing background, role-playing games, and so I easily find myself getting sucked into character. Do you ever run into people who are just a little too into the character? Like, it's supposed to be, you're personifying the character for the crowd and for the audience, but not really for each other on a personal level. Are there people that are just a little too into it?
Oh yeah, you're gonna have those in any organization in any place. Honestly, you've got the ones in our groups that say, you shouldn't dance ever in costume. It's not the way we do things because you'll never see Vader dancing. There's a time and place.
You tell them not to.
Yeah, I mean, there's a time and place for everything. Of course, you'll have the events that you'll want to be a bit more stoic and representative of the character, but charity events where there's just a bunch of kids that you're there to make the kids happy and try not to scare the kids, or you're there for the organization or the charity. You're not there to make yourself look good. You're there to make the organization look good. And I mean, having characters that are fun and approachable, in my opinion, will bring more money to a charity than a scary Darth Vader ever will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's one of those time and place type things.
Yeah.
Pick your battles.
Sometimes it would be a terrible thing to ever do, but taking yourself out of the situation, it'd kind of be funny to see a Vader scare the shit out of a kid so that they just forget about maybe the life-threatening illness they're suffering from just for a minute. They're like, oh shit, immediate death via fucking Darth Lord of the Sith. Rather than slowly being killed by something like cancer. I feel like it's a weird thought example, but I don't know. It might be it's like going to a horror movie or something, You like to see a scary movie distract you from the reality.
It's like you said, though. I mean, for those type of things, you're probably in a hospital or something like that. You're not going to be able to truly exemplify the character while you're secretly crying under the mask. So
yeah.
That is definitely the biggest kicker.
Oh gosh, I would have such a hard time. I could not do it. I could not do it.
That's why you got to wear a bucket, man.
Oh man.
All my Make-A-Wishes, it's been with the helmet on, because otherwise I'd have been blubbering the whole damn time.
Just Darth Maul streaming paint down his shirt, like red and black.
That's why you do good makeup. You do good makeup. Darth Maul,
it doesn't run.
Not mess himself up. Yeah.
Okay. Well. God. Okay, so I mean, Scout Trooper's your favorite. That was what sort of you cut your teeth on getting into the costuming. Was Return of the Jedi your first film?
Actually, I'll be honest. I have no idea what my first film was. I was brought into Star Wars at a very early age. Even though the funny thing is, my parents never actually purposely showed me. There was the triple set of VHS that just happened to be sitting on the shelf, and I threw it in one day, very young. And I just fell in love with it right off the bat. I was I was in that timeline young enough that I actually enjoyed and still enjoy the prequels. They're not my favorites, but 1 and 2 had their moments, but 3 is actually one of the higher ones on my list. So
hell yeah.
Got to really enjoy all of them. Don't know which one was my first, but I definitely enjoy them a lot.
Do you remember what your first theater movie was?
Oh, first theater movie, that would actually be when they did the re-release of A New Hope back in the early 90s. When they went back and redid the digital a little bit more. And people will complain about that. But, for my generation, we were a little 15, 20 years, a little too late to the first one. So, it was still magical to us to be able to go and see it on the big screen. Because I had the old, honestly, I can say I've probably watched it on old black and white TV before I ever saw it on the big screen. So.
That's awesome. I unapologetically like everything from the old droid cartoons to the Star Wars. To the Christmas special, the holiday special, to the prequels.
You weren't supposed to bring that up.
I know. Sorry, I broke the rule. I love it all. I don't care. It's great to me because this is what. There's nothing that crosses the boundary of sci-fi and fantasy, of friendship and family, of excitement and fear more than everything Star Wars. And that's why we all love it. That's why we all get into it. So I don't know why any fan would ever be like, well, that one example of the universe canon or legends now, it is just so horrible. I can't even look at it. Like, who cares? Sell it. Who cares? Like, just have fun. Yeah. It's supposed to be fun.
The one thing I'm always going to give it for George Lucas is he actually was trying to make something that was for everybody. Yeah. I mean, that's why you've got the slightly awkward love scenes in episode 2 and the love story there. I mean, you've got such a broad range from the old droids to the Rebel series to everything that they've tried. They've actually tried to make it very well-rounded. Some people might not appreciate certain aspects of it, but I mean, they're trying to make a very well-rounded and very good experience for anybody, no matter who you are. Which I think they've actually done a very great job about that. I mean, it wouldn't be having an entire dedicated section of Disneyland if somebody didn't think you were doing something right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for any. We watch films nowadays, and people are complaining about sort of shared universe film series out there. You have a franchise that spanned TV to film, comic to novel, toys to real life costuming that was all, it failed at times, but pretty much seamlessly story oriented from, Old Republic to New Jedi Order. Like it is the most successful storyline franchise of mixed media ever to have existed, period. Like nothing is like that. And if you can't find something in that to like, well, there's something wrong with you. I think
you're probably dead. At least dead inside.
Yeah. You just haven't, I don't know, breathed yet or something. So I don't know. I mean, I want to get into a little bit more about you before we start getting into sort of goofy Star Wars stuff here, because I'm always interested. I'm a father. Cameron's an animal father. You're a father. You already mentioned you had a child, at least one child. Is introducing your children and maybe living vicariously through that introduction important to you? Have you introduced them to Star Wars?
Oh yeah, my kids have, and I've got 2 boys. They have grown up on Star Wars. They generally have no fear around costumers like other kids will, because they can spot me out no problem.
Oh, really?
In a line, yeah. You can have a lineup of biker scouts, and they still know which one is me. They have no problem with Darth Vader. They think it's the greatest thing ever. So we've watched all the Star Wars. Proud father moment when my oldest was probably around 4 or 5 at the time, and he went up to the DVD case and immediately grabbed out Empire Strikes Back and said, "This is my favorite. We're watching it."
Parenting done right.
Yep,
success.
We can call it right there. I've done my part at that point. So
it's a fine line between sort of like best and worst case scenarios. Like as a father of a daughter, you want to do nothing more than to keep them off the pole. Like that is, if you can keep them off the pole, you've done your job. But if you can get them to pull out Empire Strikes Back as their favorite Star Wars film, I feel like that's the ultimate success in life.
Exactly.
There are a few things, not even the poll can make that quota. That's funny. It's weird that I laugh at my own jokes. Sorry, guys. That's just how I roll.
That was a good one. You can laugh.
Yeah. So, do you make it? Is it like a big family event whenever a new film comes out that you take all the kids to, or is it something where you're so wrapped up in the organization that maybe you can't go see it because you're representing the Legion?
So it's a little mixed bag because fortunately we've had enough movies over the past couple of years. We've been able to try a few out. When the first one came out, or episode 7 came out a couple years ago, my youngest was a little too young for it at the time, but my oldest was kind of that age to try the midnight showing, and we tried the midnight showing, and he was just so dang tired, couldn't really do it. Was excited for it, but couldn't really keep his eyes awake through the whole time. Fortunately, we do have a supportive family as well, so me and my wife will be out in character at the premieres, all dressed up when we can, and then we'll dress down and go see a midnight showing, because that's, of course, I'm never going to miss one of those. Other times, so this last one for Solo, we just decided to, we'll leave the boys at home for the midnight showing, but we'll usually follow it up the very next day and go check the kids out of school early, go see an early showing, so that they can enjoy it. Because let's face it, by the time Monday or Tuesday the following week rolls around, there's a good chance I've already seen it at least 3 or 4 times.
Oh yeah, you have to.
So do you mind if I ask what you thought of Solo? I don't want to get on a tangent, but just, surface thoughts.
Yeah, no, not a problem. Solo, I did find it enjoyable. It wasn't my favorite. I think they could have improved on a few aspects of it. But I can see the difficulties of that one, because you're trying to fill some holes in the storyline with a character that's already established, versus Rogue One, you only had a theme that you had to fill. You didn't have to try to really fill in, a couple of the main characters that everybody knows and loves. It was all brand new characters. It was all a basis of storyline of just we need to fill in point A to point B. Where Solo, that's your origin story that everybody wants to know. And of course, you've got the old canon, you've got the old EU legend type scenario where people already have their mindset of what Solo is, what Chewie is. It is a bit more difficult, so that expectation is kind of there. They ran into the same problem with The Last Jedi, which I absolutely love, but people were losing it over Luke being the hermit out in the middle of nowhere. That's not Luke. How could he go like that? And I'm like, no, I can totally see it. He tried, he failed royally, and decided to do what every other Jedi seems to do. I got to go live alone on a planet somewhere.
To his, I guess, well, no, maybe not to his credit, because those little huts were pretty much the size of Yoda's little Dagobah hut anyway. There's just these little, what is it with Jedi and having like these tiny little circular hovels? Can't they get like a, 12-foot clearance anytime, anywhere? And I always love to ask the question, because whenever you run into sort of comic book people, they're fun. You'll have a comic book run of, say, Spider-Man, and then another storyteller will come in and do a run and reimagine their origins or reimagine story elements. And if you're a Spider-Man fan, it doesn't matter, because it's just another version of what you love. You don't have to sign on to every little aspect of it. You're just happy that someone's telling a Spider-Man story. So when it's time for Star Wars, there is very much this, no, this is the way I see it. This must be the way. What is it about this franchise versus others where we are traditionally so averse to hearing alternative versions of a storyline, like Han's origin story?
Good question. I think it's just people have their expectations, and they're not going to ever get over them. Fortunately, I'm a little bit more broad on that aspect. I'm one of those, I don't have expectations when I go to see movies, as long as I enjoy the movie, which has pretty much been most movies in my life. I've only ever walked out of one single movie, which would be the first Hulk movie. Oh, wow. Sorry, when you bring in the Poodle Hulk, that one, done, out. Couldn't do it after that. But
I hope you did that. As when you walked out, you're like, nope.
No, I walked out, and I think I walked right into Mars Attacks and thought, oh, I made the right choice there.
Hell yeah.
But, people have their expectations of what they think the next Star Wars is going to be. People have their expectations of, what the costuming groups should be. And, of course, that's always going to create that, well, I think it should be this way. Well, I think it should be this way. And, at the end of the day, just go have fun with whatever you're doing, whether it be dressing up as a Jedi, whether it be going to go see Star Wars. If you don't like it, you don't like it. That doesn't mean you should have vitriol and hate over, something you didn't care for. Solo definitely wasn't my favorite of all of them, but I did enjoy it. I did go and have fun. It's still, something that I have watched several times since it came out because I did enjoy the movie.
I was just watching it last week, half an hour at a time. I run 3 miles every morning on a treadmill because it's too cold outside. And so I'm just sitting there watching Solo. Like I could watch this infinitely. Like it's just like with Rogue One. If I want to watch a war movie, I throw on a Rogue One. If I want to watch a Western, in my opinion, I throw on a Solo. If I want to watch, a sort of thematic stuff, then it's always going to be Empire and Return of the Jedi. Like, and if I want to bawl because I see fucking Anakin turning to Vader, then I turn on, Revenge of the Sith. Like, it's just, that's how I roll. I dig it. It seems there's always these thematic elements that we can connect to no matter what's sort of going on because they're all human elements and, we're all human. Yeah. So if you love the franchise, if you love the story elements, if you love the characters, then I can forgive goofy, red lines or plot holes. I can suspend disbelief enough to just get back to 12-year-old Adam and just enjoy it for what it is.
Exactly.
And this is the other side of it that I don't know if it is just a symptom of our culture, where we're going as a culture anyway, with social media and the emphasis on me. But whatever happened to perspective? Like, if you don't like something, that's your right. Of course, don't like it. Don't expose yourself to it then if you don't like it. But that doesn't mean you can attack actors who are just trying to have a profession or screenwriters who are just trying to do their job. Like, because you don't like it doesn't mean you get to just attack or try to ruin people's lives. Like, that's next level type stuff. I've never understood that. And yet we see that bleeding into our family, the sort of Star Wars lovers family.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't want to have you, cure all of the ills of the Star Wars community in this, but do you have any suggestions for people that may want to lash out because they didn't like it, or how do you think we should handle that as fans?
Easy. When you think of going back and attacking something of the new, press pause on it. Just go throw in your old VHS of A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back, chill out, and then reconvene. Try to, just like you said, bring back 12-year-old Adam or the first time you saw it, and just what's the enjoyable things that you like about Star Wars. And I can't remember who said it. Might have even been George Lucas, but someone had mentioned that the new Star Wars is not for my generation. It's not for the generation before me. It's for the new generation. It's written more with them as the target basis. But most of us, I'd say there are more people under the umbrella of Star Wars that actually do enjoy it. And unfortunately, you just have those hater fanboys that they're the loudest and they're going to be the most obnoxious. And they're the ones, that one negative review will always stand out over the hundreds of positive.
Yeah, oh, yeah, it's true.
My alt, if I may, if you're hating something, go grab your VHS copy or hop on YouTube and watch the holiday special. And then go back to
perspective.
Like, it's all about perspective.
This was terrible. And then I watched this, I'm like, not so bad.
Yeah. Although it's a guilty pleasure is watching that stupid show.
I mean, we're going to have to do a date night next time, man. Next year.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
it's just throw on your red Snuggie and celebrate Wookiee Life Day.
Yeah. No, dude, I totally have a robe for Life Day.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
It's horrible.
Okay, so this is the last question, I promise, before we get into some speculation fun here, because that is what I love so much about Star Wars. We have this gap between movies, and we just love to speculate about what's going to happen, who's going to be showing up, what they're going to be doing, how it's all going to wrap up. Is it all ever going to wrap up? But before we get to that, you had mentioned you have multiple costumes, you have multiple persona in Rebel Legion, 501st, Mercs. What do you have anything you're working on that's coming up? Like, what costumes do you want to do that you haven't been able to get to yet?
Oh, geez. You gotta ask the hard questions. So it's kind of hard because I just recently finished up my Jedi Temple Guard.
Nice.
That
Really?
debuted.
Wait,
last
was that
Comic-Con.
you at the front cover?
That was me at the front.
I didn't know that was you.
Yes.
Yep.
Hold on, I'm
That's
going to cut
sweet.
to that really quick so people can see it.
Yeah, that's killer.
Okay, well, I got words right over it, so sorry. That ruins it.
Look,
Just throw it on the photos on repeat. It'll come around again.
Yeah.
But so I just got that one done. And of course, every one of us, we've all got our list. The one both my wife and I are eyeing right now is the Praetorian Guards from The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
I think it's referred to as the Brute, the really big one with the dome. The dome out on the helmet.
Yeah.
Just looks so awesome and powerful that you just can't say no to that. So that's one of the tops right now. But of course, that's one of those. It's going to take me more time and money than I probably have any time in the near future. I just me and my wife spent a year or so getting this Temple Guard done because it was a lot of looking at the videos from the Clone Wars and trying to translate something from an animated costume into a real life costume has a few limits on what should and should not be possible. So you have to translate, hey, that should not move like that, as we've seen in some of the armors. One of my next projects, of course, is I'm going to be working on both a custom Jedi and a custom Sith. The custom Jedi mainly for simplicity's sake, because all of my characters are helmeted, which sometimes it's not so great because it might be 100 and something degrees outside, and that the Tusken Raider, the Scout Trooper, which technically I don't have a Scout Trooper anymore. I actually converted him to General Weir, which is a Shadow Scout Trooper General. This past year, because armor starts yellowing over time than plastic armor, and
that's why I gotta get you a snowy.
Yeah,
it can look like garbage and it's okay.
So like rather than repaint or anything, I'll just or paint it white and try to make it look original. Let's just paint it black and call it good. So
Nice.
And so I'm doing a custom Jedi, working on a custom Sith, which I would actually like to do a spin-off of the Temple Guard, just more of not a full Sith acolyte, but an inspired, let's just call him a Sith Temple Guard.
Cool.
I've got a spare Temple Guard mask over here. That was a B pull from the guy that did it.
Nice.
And basically just want to make one of those. That's the Star Wars lineup for the next little bit. How quick or what have you that might be differing. More than likely, the Jedi's going to be, what material does my wife have left over in her seamstress bin, and I'll probably make something from that. But I mean, after that, I've got so many on the list. There's in what we call an armored Grand Moff, like Morlish Veed. I want to do one of those. So it's basically a Imperial officer, but has actually hard armor on the top.
Those are dope.
Those are awesome, and I can do everything pretty well. But man, trying to find boots in my size that are cheap that can get approvable. I mean, honestly, the boots I've been finding, I'm like, I might as well just make a new costume for that price.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
man.
I lucked out when I got my officer boots. Like I got mine pretty much new, $80.
Oh wow!
Never seen them ever again go for that much.
No.
Jeez.
No, I'm looking for my calf size and foot size and everything. I'm looking in the $400 range.
Oh shit! For boots?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The problem is they raised the requirements on officer boots, so you can't have like any stretch panel, any zipper that's visible, and that kind of makes things hard for those of us of wider calves and wider feet, because most equestrian riders, they apparently have really tiny legs and tiny feet because that's all you see for that style.
Man.
Oh yeah, that's getting into custom boot territory, and that's always rough.
Yep.
That's wild. All
That's
right.
why I like having chicken legs.
I don't exercise on purpose, just so I can fit in the boots.
Even
Even if I exercise, those several years of playing hockey kind of built up my calves, so those aren't going down anytime soon.
I just imagine people like taping up their calves in order to get like squeeze into boots so they don't have to drop $400 for them. That's crazy. Josh in the chat room saying you should still watch the holiday special sometimes, like you did the Droids movie. Yes, and we do, brother. Thanks for joining us live, by the way. Okay, so let's get into some fun. We've got episode 9 coming up. We got TV shows coming up. What do you want to hit on? What are you looking forward to most in the Star Wars universe coming up?
As much as episode 9, I'm definitely excited for that. When the new images of Netflix's The Mandalorian started dropping, I started giggling.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be so good. So what do you think is
longest year?
Because what we've traditionally seen in the past is that, sort of first season of the cartoons, whether we're talking Clone Wars or we're talking Rebels, aren't really the best, but then they pick up steam and they get insanely good doing fan service. This is a direct take. The Mandalorian is straight up adult the whole time. The youngest cast member announced is like 37 or something like that. So this is an older generation TV series. What are you looking forward to most in it?
Oh, I'm curious to see what they're actually going to do with the Mandalorian culture in this one. We saw what they did with the Death Watch. We saw what they did with I can't remember the group's name in the Rebels. So, which is a very streamlined of what the Mandalorians are. And they've definitely taken some nods off of what the Mandalorian mercs have done. You can see inspiration from the Mandalorians within the armor just of the Mandalorian, and what the old expanded universe comics show as the Mandalorians. Which so you've got a wide spectrum of what people think a Mandalorian is. From they're all humans to basically they're all races, but they represent more of a culture. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with this new take where the main is actually the Mandalorian and not, in the case of the Rebels, you've got Sabine and, great character. And they brought in the Mandalorian pride with that. Of course, the Rebels, or not the Rebels, the Clone Wars series, they showed the two styles of what Mandalorians could be. But this is definitely going to be something of showing truly what's the day in the life of a Mandalorian. I'm curious, I haven't been reading up, so maybe these answers have been made already. Is this a happening pre-Clone Wars or post-Clone Wars? When is this thing happening? Oh, yeah. Which is going to totally drive how things going, because, whenever anybody thinks Mandalorian, they're like, oh, Boba Fett. He's like the Mandalorian. Yeah. No, there's tons of them out there. You just don't see them.
Yeah, and the series is announced. It's like I think it was like 6 to 9 years or something after Return of the Jedi, and so this is like pre-Force Awakens, pre-Star Wars Resistance. This is a time when it is even pre-Bloodlines novel. So this is an era where we don't know anything, and it's set specifically, at least to begin with, in the Outer Rim, and so this is like lone Mandalorian. They have to bring in Mandalorian culture. So I feel like even if it's like this tangential reference of sort of B character monologue about, that's clearly a Mandalorian. What's a Mandalorian? Oh, they're blah, 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 blah. Like there's got to be something like that if it's not going to be this overt thing. What do you think about that take though? Because it is very much this gunslinger they reference, very much Western tone on the outer regions of space here. So, is this like a Hulk TV series, Kung Fu TV series from back in the 70s, where they're going like town to town solving problems, or is it something else? Like, what do you think?
Good question. I have no speculation on that right now. I hope it's not too much of, one thing that kind of had a hard time for me with the first part of Clone Wars is where every episode was its own episode. They didn't tie a lot storyline from episode to episode until you started getting to later seasons where it was more of a long storyline tied together instead of individual episodes. I'd want to avoid that scenario. Otherwise, we're just doing like a remake of Trigun or something like that. Yeah. And have more of a good overall longevity thing, which Dave Filoni did much better with the Rebel series in regards to that.
Yeah.
They took a little bit to get in the stride of Rebels, because you have to do the introduction, you have to get the storyline actually going. But once you get the basis of the characters there, I mean, once you got that basis, Rebels took off, and I mean, hands down, one of my favorite things to watch is just going through, especially the later seasons, because it gets so in depth on everything EU that you thought was long and forgotten, but they start bringing in references all over the place to even the littlest of nods to some of the great things from the EU or even from the main series. So, but I mean, even the storyline itself was just that well written, and I hope they take notes from that and just apply that to the Mandalorian. The great thing about the Mandalorian, in my opinion, is we're not running into this like episode 7, 8, and 9, which is we now know the characters. We want the original characters. Of course, we're going to get the new ones, but everyone, they want to know what's up with Luke, what's up with Leia, what's up with Han Solo. Who's this, who's that? And it takes a bit. This is a whole new character, a whole new cast, just like Rogue One, which I don't know about you guys. Rogue One is right up there, right after Empire for me.
Absolutely.
I mean,
love that movie.
I mean, for me, let's put it this way: Empire, Rogue One, Last Jedi. That's where I put it at right there. Yeah. I actually enjoyed Last Jedi really well. So,
good on you, man. That's awesome.
But I mean, so this is going to separate. This is going to separate out what we think and want to just an original story, something that's we're not going to have to think about. We're just going to be able to sit and enjoy this thing.
Yeah.
I tell you what, though, if I don't get like a HoloNet news bulletin in the background of some cantina in the middle of nowhere in the Outer Rim saying like Princess Organa or Mon Mothma has decreed with the new Republic. If there's not something back there, I don't care if it's like a new old school newspaper or something. I want a reference to these heroes of the galaxy. I mean, they literally saved the galaxy from the Empire. There's got to be nods to that, and more importantly, there's Imperial remnants right now hiding. Like we have to run into the Empire, right?
Exactly, and I think we are going to see some stuff like that. You're definitely going to get the nod. Star Wars has always been about the nod, no matter where you're at. As long as there's small little things. I mean, when you start in, for example, in Force Awakens, the fact that they had a droid that was in there that was the original Ralph McQuarrie C-3PO concept, They throw all sorts of those nods in all the time. In the Force Awakens, if you look up in the banners, you can see the 501st Legion flag. It's up there. You see it for a brief moment, and there's the nod to the 501st. And so I think you're definitely going to see that with the Mandalorian. To what extent, whether it's full blown in your face, you're going to get some tangible evidence of the remnants, but they do have a lot of open story there that they can definitely pull from. I'll
tell you what, sort of my go-to, I would literally lose my mind and start bawling on like just in front of whomever if in season 2 they have a 3-episode arc where the Mandalorian happens to run across this dude in black clothes searching for ancient Jedi artifacts that they don't even have to identify as Luke Skywalker, but just happens to be him, and they don't overtly mention it, but they just sort of run across it and they have to run parallel for a couple episodes. I would lose my mind. Like something like that. This is like the perfect format for something like that, where it's pure fan service, like Darth Maul in Solo. You didn't need it. It totally didn't need it at all, but it was just a nod to the fans. If they did something like that, I would lose it. That would be the best. What's your sort of go-to, this would be the greatest moment if it could happen in The Mandalorian?
Oh, man, you're asking tough ones. Okay, honestly, and Timothy Zahn's going to throw something at me. I have not read the Thrawn, the new Thrawn books
you've
quite
got
yet.
to.
I know. I need to.
So good.
So hopefully, no spoilers. He
Right.
hasn't resolved End of Rebels with Thrawn and Ezra disappearing into the Nether.
Not yet.
There's a good chance. I've always wanted Thrawn to come back.
Oh, dude.
Just that dude's crazy.
Yeah.
Seeing him somehow making his way back into the limelight, and a more aged Thrawn finally making it back from the wherever they ended up, because there's always the chance he's still alive. Actually, I think there's a great chance him and Ezra are still alive.
Yeah.
Spoilers for anyone that hasn't seen that. I mean, if you haven't seen it yet, I mean, come on, we got to.
You should have by now.
You've had plenty of time, and you shouldn't be watching this.
Totally should have by now.
Yep. So I mean, that would be I would lose it if suddenly Thrawn were in any of the new ones. I kind of doubt they'll throw Thrawn in there. I think he's too much of a powerhouse, but you definitely won't see him in the next mainstream movie. But who knows? There could be a nod to Thrawn or a remnant of Thrawn in The Mandalorian, which would definitely make things interesting.
Oh, killer.
I tell you what, though, having read the first two of the three books, the third one's coming out next year. They've set, I'm not going to spoil anything, but they've set some stuff up where I think a film trilogy or a TV series could be made just about Thrawn himself with what they've already set up. It seems like they're building to something that is more than books. So you should read it. I'm not going to say anything, but just saying it would do a massive disservice if he was a B character of any film or TV series, because he's got some incredible stuff queued up, waiting to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to find. I think I've got the digital copy that Timothy Zahn gave me last year. I actually had dinner with him at the 501st Legion dinner at our last year Comic-Con.
That's awesome.
I couldn't have done it. I would have cried the whole time.
No, that was a fun dinner. So I got to sit and talk with him, and we got to have a little bit of fun talking about especially the differences between his old Thrawn trilogy, which I still have that paperback sitting downstairs on
my
library,
shelf. Yeah.
Versus
right
the new one. So I do have to catch up. Spend a little bit too much of my time in costume and not in front of a book. So
yeah, I'm lucky enough to have a long commute. Lucky or not lucky enough to have a long commute to work. So I just put in audiobooks. And that's how I keep up to date. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, man.
Yeah, it's been great having you here, man.
Hey, not a problem. It's been a fun one to be on, especially being able to talk about Rogue Base and Rebel Legion and get our names out there. Especially, a lot of people sometimes don't realize Rogue Base and the Rebel Legion exist, because 501st Legion, they definitely are a very big powerhouse and they cast a very large shadow. When I joined 501st, I had no idea that they weren't just all the Star Wars. In fact, there were actually separations, but once I got in, I got to know them. I decided, you know what, why do I want to limit myself to just one part of my fandom? I got to spread the love. So like I said, now I'm a member of pretty much all but one or two of the official clubs here locally, which I should be getting into those here fairly soon. And you just got to go out and have fun, find your niche, find your group of people that you can consider your family in the Star Wars community. They are there, and we get to have a lot of fun with what we do. Right, Meigs?
That's awesome.
Oh, absolutely. I really need to start doing it again. Hell, I don't even think I've trooped with you. And God, it's been like 2 years. I think last time I trooped with you was probably the Grizzlies. If I remember. Yeah.
That would be, if you weren't at the last year's Grizzlies, that would be 2 years ago.
Nope. I missed last year's and this year's, of course.
Well, Utah Jazz next month. You better be there.
I'm trying.
Dude, if you can get there, I want some photos. I want a blog. I want to hear about this. I'll go and I'll take photos of you guys. That'd be awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. Where can people find you or the Rebel Legion online?
Yeah, so you can go to online for the main site is rebellegion.com. That's going to, of course, be for the umbrella, let's call it the umbrella corporation of for the good guys. In there, you can find the information on how to contact us locally. Within there as well, you find the information on how to build the Rebel Legion costumes, what our standards are for the specific costumes. In regards to actually us here locally, we do have a website, theroguebase.com. You can go there, and they've got information on how to contact us. You can find us on Facebook as well, which I believe is just facebook.com / I can't remember if it's Rogue Base or the Rogue Base. I kind of forget these things sometimes.
We'll put
kind of bad
links.
because I'm in charge.
We'll put links afterwards, so it's all
So you can find us there. So if anybody out there does have interest here locally, reach out to us through our Facebook page. We will definitely get you going. Find you the people you need to talk to for that specific costume that you want. If you want to do a Jedi, me and my wife will have boundless types of information for you want. The guy you had showing there, Jason Liu, at the very beginning, if you even mention you're doing a costume, he will make sure it's going to be a clone.
Yep.
That's his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So, there's a way to reach out. And if you're not here in Utah, oh, darn, I guess you'll have to reach out to one of the many, many, many other bases that we have across the world.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. I mean, we are international. 501st is international. We're on pretty much every continent except Antarctica, which I think we have had a member actually be there at one point. So, yeah, sometimes it can be difficult if you're one of those smaller areas, but, great thing is the advent of the internet. At least you can be in communication with people and find ways to reach out to local events. You might be one of those areas that it might be you and your wife just going out and or you and your significant other going out to an event by yourselves, which we've got some people here in Utah. They live so far out in the middle of nowhere. Even our St. George people, there's only a small handful there. And but you look for the opportunity and just go out, enjoy what you do, and enjoy it with the people you do it with.
Awesome.
Hell yeah.
Well, I highly recommend everyone go out there, check out rebellegion.com, check out the Facebook page, and if you dig it, if you get into costuming, even if you're just a slight interest like me, you want to jump in, you don't quite know what the temperature is going to be like, so you're just sort of dipping your toe in from time to time, asking questions from different people, still, go check it out. Follow what they do. If for no other reason, you're going to have your heart warmed by the positive interactions that they're having with not only the Star Wars community at large, but the greater world at large, and inspiring children to look up to heroes and villains and suspend disbelief and have fun and get involved in the universe of Star Wars and the love of it. And that's really why we all do it and why we all watch stuff like this or other more popular, widely seen shows. It's all for the love of Star Wars. Thank you all so much. TJ, it's been an absolute pleasure. Of course, if all of you watching this after the fact want to contribute to the show, you can always like and subscribe this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have a website, theinfernalbrotherhood.com. If you have any questions or comments, or you want to send us your own I Am a Scruffy Looking Nerf Herder video clips, like we had Jason Liu at the very beginning of the show, you can send those to theinfernalbrotherhood@gmail.com. Audio, video, whatever you're comfortable with. We'll appreciate it. We can even throw in some video or still images in front of it if you want to do an impersonation of one of your favorite characters or something. It'll be fun.
Hell, we can even act it out for you if you want.
That's true. I do a mean robot.
That'll be sweet.
Like a robot being torn apart in Jabba's palace. I can do that in a heartbeat. All right. So is there anything else? Did we forget it? Is that it? We good?
I think we got it all.
Fuck yeah. All right, everyone. Till we can speak of Star Wars again, may the Force be with you.
That's so Wizard Annie.
It's just so stupid.
It is.
All right, guys, that was